This might be one of the craziest races to the number one pick in recent history in the NBA. Just how crazy is it? Tyler Rucker of No Ceilings NBA is here to help us break that down.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
DC family, you are locked on to the Washington Wizards, where you're part of our family. We thank you for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team free and available every single day. We are the number one sports podcast network in the nation. Alongside the DC sports content creating Strober and Abdullah Ayubi, I'm Ben Strober and I cover the Washington Wizards for Roundtable IO. And joining us on the show today for the first time, we are honored to have Tyler Rucker, the founder of No Ceilings NBA. You can check him out, part of the Locked On family, Locked On NBA Draft, No Ceilings. We had one of his colleagues, Nathan Grubel, on a couple weeks back. Now we're excited to have him. You can check out his work on his Substack, NoCeilingsNBA.com. A lot of great stuff if you're into the draft prospect stuff, which I think a lot of you listening right now definitely are, because you are a Washington Wizards fan. So all things draft all the time. Tyler, how's it going right now? You've been busy, man. I know.
Yeah, it's a fantastic time of the year. It's getting a little bit more exciting than usual. But I always say that, I said to you guys before we hit record, I feel like I'm an honorary Wizards fan because you guys are one of my favorite fan bases to talk with. So happy to be here. Thank you guys.
I know that gets AB excited. I think he loves to see when we get any type of love as a fan base, right, AB?
Yeah, I mean, by rooting for us, Tyler, you mean you want us to lose so we can get a good draft pick, obviously.
Exactly, right. For better fortune, for the better future. So I completely agree.
All right, well, on today's show, is this the wildest race to the number one pick ever? It's a three-headed race. We'll go through all the motions of that. What do we actually know about the Darryn Peterson conflict? What is really happening over there? We're going to try to see if we can get an answer on that. And then if the Wizards fall, God forbid, which of these point guard options, because we know there's a lot of them, would be the best fit for Washington? All right, let's start with the race to the first overall pick. It's a three-headed race right now between Dybantsa, obviously, Peterson, and Boozer. It's late February right now, and I don't think we really have like a clear read of who the consensus top pick is right now, which I think is crazy. I can't remember anything like this. Tyler, have you ever, can you remember a race like this to the top pick between three guys that's been this tight?
Yeah, I think you said the perfect word at the end. It's like, it's so tight. I mean, it's not, in other years, you could go back to the Chet Holmgren, Paulo Banchero, Jabari Smith kind of one, but it didn't feel as close as this one. And this one, it's like these top prospects, each of them is a different position. So it's kind of like, okay, well, what direction is your team trying to go in? But no, I mean, this is going to be one of the toughest ones, I think, one of the closest races. And I think it's going to be one that goes down to the wire, not even just the end of March Madness. I think it's going to be pre-draft, intel, workouts. I think it's going to be kind of something we're discussing right until the end. And I do think, Caleb Wilson's kind of cemented himself a little bit as a wild card because teams are that high on him. So it's shaping up to be a special year. And this race at one is not getting any closer because you can make an argument for all these guys.
Yeah, I want to ask you, Tyler, before we get into DP and AJ, Cameron Boozer, the knock on him, at least from what I've seen on Twitter from a lot of NBA fans, is that he's not flashy. He's not a guy that can go out there and be shifty for you. I just think him being so fundamental, why do you think there's this current discourse around him just being so fluid as a player, but it's just not highlight worthy?
It's been one of the funniest things coming into the year. It was kind of like a prediction of us at No Ceilings, but we were like, hey, fans aren't going to like Boozer. And it's because he's boring. He's a robot. He's a machine, but he's consistent, and it's not the flashiest highlights. So if you're watching the highlights to get a quick recap or quick feel, you're going to be like, man, this guy's kind of boring. But it's like when you watch the games, you feel the impact. You see all the little things he does, like his playmaking, his feel, his basketball IQ, his intangibles. He checks a ton of boxes. It's just, I think it's one of those players where you're like, yeah, but do you want more? And it's like, well, at the end of the day, Kim Boozer is just a heck of a basketball player that's going to probably play the NBA for a very, very long time. But it's just how special this class is of the other guys might have more upside, but Cam's just a good player.
How much do you think teams value a guy with a high floor? like that, because what I've been teetering around in my mind right now, I feel like Boozer's a lock to go in the top two because I think teams might just value how high the floor is in a guy like that. Just the production, what you get every single night. If this guy's a guaranteed 20 and 10 every night in the NBA, that's hard as an executive to pass up on. And obviously, like you said, it kind of depends in the situation that your franchise is in. Do you kind of understand that sentiment, or do you think more of these GMs are going to be looking for the upside in Dybantsa and then have Boozer go 3 or 4, whatever it is in this class?
I think every single year we kind of see these draft classes where you're like, hey, why doesn't the high floor guy get a little bit more love? Because in a weird way, it feels safe in a draft process that's never safe. Everyone's like kind of an unknown, like how is this really going to work? But it's one of those things we see in history, like NBA teams, when you talk to them, they're always prioritizing the upside because it's like, hey, if I'm picking this high, I might as well swing for the fence. Sometimes though, I'm like, well, why don't you swing for a double or a triple instead of, going for a grand slam? So I think, especially tying it into Boozer, you can make an argument like, hey, he's got high upside, but he also might have the highest floor of the big three. And the other guys are tremendous, but I think we're going to still see them swinging for this upside because it's, hey, could Darren and AJ be, superstar talents? Absolutely. But could still Boozer develop into that all NBA type of player? Absolutely. And I think worst case scenario for Cam specifically, like you're still talking about a guy that's going to be impactful for a long time. So that's why it's creating so many headaches with these NBA teams. When you talk to them, they're like, hey, if I have Cam at 3, it feels wrong. And if I have these other guys down here, it feels wrong too. So it's going to be a heck of a puzzle moving forward.
What do you think, Tyler, is the biggest knock on AJ Dybantsa? Because I think he's a future star, but for a lot of fans out there, I've seen people try to compare him to be the next Andrew Wiggins, where really good in college but doesn't really pan out in the NBA. If you were to evaluate him and try to draw his weaknesses, what would it be?
I think with AJ coming into the year, I thought he was like out of the big three, he was the rawest, and it was just the more questions, and it was like the outside shot needs to come around a little bit more just to be more of a consistent threat from 3 levels, and then I think some of the off ball defense is like, okay, we need to work on a little bit, but you also go like, hey, he's still 18, about to turn 19. A lot of these guys are, and when you watch AJ, he's just tremendous, growth throughout this season. I think that was the biggest concern for me was like, okay, let's see if the playmaking, the feel for the game can really take some strides this year. And, he's taken tremendous growth recently. So that shows you there's a lot of upside and still things that are kind of falling into place and gets you really excited.
Yeah, month of February for AJ, 30.7 points per game, 8 rebounds, 5.7 assists, 54.6 field goal percentage, the 3-point percentage up to 43.8% in the month of February. Do you think this month has made this conversation between him and Peterson a lot tighter? I know there's some of the baggage that Peterson has been going through, stuff behind the scenes that we're going to talk about in the next segment, but just the production alone from Dybantsa, like, do you see him growing at a rate maybe accelerated than you expected early on with him, or is this about what you expected him to be at this point in the season?
It's one of those things when you talk to teams and as an evaluator, you're trying to also not be too like overreactionary in the current moment. So it's one of those things we always stress, like, hey, take the full slate of an evaluation. Like, how did they look in the beginning of the year? Do your check-ins? How did they end up? Like, what's the growth? I think that's the biggest case in kind of the sales pitch for AJ right now is like, oh my gosh, he's taken huge strides lately. It's before it was kind of like, hey, he's dominating against weaker opponents. Then all of a sudden he plays, the Arizona game was tough for him and he saw a lot of looks where he really struggled. And then you saw even starting with the Kansas game where everyone was focused on Darren Peterson. I was like, AJ's making fantastic adjustments when it comes to reading the defense that he didn't make last game. And now it's started to, snowball into all these games. Houston, who was great, Iowa State. So now he's putting up these big boy performances against tougher opponents. And we've still been kind of focusing on like, well, AJ's still not, 100%. Cam Boozer's still doing his thing. But I think it has made a consistent kind of like, oh, he's gaining some momentum right now. He's generating some noise. And I think that's a real positive thing for AJ in this current moment. I think it's really heating up right now to be a legit conversation.
Just how impactful, Tyler, will March Madness be for these guys? Because I've seen a lot of prospects in the past where they just thrive off of playing under the brightest lights. So when it comes to the race to number 1, who do you think is going to shine the most?
It's always tough because it does give a big boost, a much bigger than maybe some might be like, oh, does it deserve it? But the realization is like now all these NBA scouts, NBA teams are in one place. They get to see these guys against tougher competition, and it's an event where they're all talking, buzzing, and seeing these guys. So I think March can definitely like kind of give you a boost when it comes to especially a race at the top. If one of these guys, like if Cam Boozer makes a lengthy run and he keeps playing like this, absolutely. I think all of a sudden teams could be like, okay, wait, are we overthinking this a little bit? And maybe he does need to be up there. But it's one of those every month you talk to a team or every week, it feels like you kind of all of a sudden have a different vibe of like, well, maybe this guy could be up there. And maybe this one. It's why this class has been so much fun because it doesn't feel right any order you have. You feel like you could be like, well, you just want to get one of them at this point. And the guys right behind him are just as exciting. So look, I think it could be big for Cam Boozer because I think he's got the best chance to be playing the longest and be in front of executives' eyes a lot. So that's where things are going to get really fun is I think March Madness is going to help not only these three or one of these guys. I think there's guys, picking later that are going to make some momentum.
Hey, I don't know if you saw this, but Duke men's basketball made a video montage after they played at Capital One Arena in DC, showcasing the new locker rooms that they have in Washington. They were enamored with it. Boozer was like, this is an incredible locker room. Do you think that type of stuff could play a factor in teams, maybe trying to dictate where they want to go in the draft process? I know that's not the NFL. Like, you're not going to get a Manning situation necessarily where one guy ducks another, but maybe stuff like that is starting to happen now. Alex Sarr definitely did it to Atlanta to become a Wizard. And we've seen more and more instances where guys try to dictate where they want to go in the draft process. Do you anticipate anything like this happening with any of these prospects? Maybe Peterson would be the easy answer, I guess, based on what people perceive about him right now. But I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
It seems like we kind of get a little bit of it each year, and it seems like some years it gets a little louder than normal. Like last year with Ace Bailey, everyone's like, is he trying to kind of steer his way to a certain place? And I think it's the funny part. I think a lot of fans will overreact to like, oh, is this on the kid? And it's like, no, they hired an agent. That's their job, is to try to make their, client happy. And I think it's one of those absolute, like, I get it, where it's like, hey, an agent wants a point guard prospect to not go to a team with 2 point guards. He wants to be able to play right away. So I think absolutely it's happening. It probably will happen. I'll be interested to see if it becomes obvious and in the media and leaks out more. But I definitely think like a young player sees the Wizards and they're like, hey, this team's on the rise in a hurry, especially after the trade deadline. But it seems like an easy place that you would want to go play and develop your game and be a part of something special.
I hope that's the case. We're seeing more and more signs of it, but I think this summer we'll really find out how much people want to truly play in Washington. All right, when we come back, Darryn Peterson, his name's been in the headlines a ton, not just because of how good he is, but unfortunately the baggage around it, the controversy around it. We try to make a little bit more sense of the situation when we come back. You ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with NBA Sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right, flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. I love futures this time of year, whether it's picking a team to win the championship or grab a conference title. It adds that extra layer of excitement every game down the stretch. They say if you get to 40 wins before 20, that means you're probably one of the locks to get to the finals at least, or that's like the criteria to do so. So I'm looking at OKC, of course, looking at San Antonio as well, Detroit. How about that? And now not only can your pick cash, it can also send you to the finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Here with Tyler Rucker from No Ceilings NBA. Tyler, I want to get into Darryn Peterson. How would you describe the current state of DP?
It's been a tough one because Darren's unbelievable. He's an unbelievable talent, and I think it's tough right now because of the stories that are trying to be kind of hunted and thrown out there. And you hear a lot of stuff. You're like, that one's a little bit of a stretch. But he's an incredible player that everything I've heard is the intel about Darren is fantastic when it comes to like, he's a hard worker. He's everything you want. I think it's just a situation where like, hey, you got this hamstring injury. That's a tough injury in sports to try to play through. And he's trying to figure out a way to make it. So it's been tough seeing kind of the noise being brought about like, hey, is this a Darren doesn't want to play, or is it, he's not that mentally strong? And it's like, no. Let's calm down there. I think it's just unfortunate injury that he's trying to get through.
Yeah, and there's so many different conspiracies, and some of them are absolutely insane. I'm not going to even bother getting into them right here. Like, not worried about like him secretly needing to play a certain amount of games or whatever to get his NIL money. I'm not going to bother with all that stuff. One thing that's apparent to me, and I think he truly is hurt right now with a hamstring injury, and I think that because if you just go back and watch his high school tape versus what he's done at the college level, he's been unbelievable at the college level, despite not really playing the way he did in high school. He looked like he had a lot more burst. He looked like he was a lot more explosive. We're not seeing that level of play from Peterson, and I personally believe the injury is a big reason why. Still, I think this says a lot about him because he's been able to essentially change like who he's been as a basketball player and still be one of the best, if not the best players in basketball. Like, the numbers here speak for themselves of him playing off the ball. 100th percentile on spot ups, 97th percentile on catch and shoot. I think he's shooting 47% on catch and shoot threes. How have you noticed his game differencing like from his high school tape? Do you think it's because of the injury?
Yeah, I think he's had to adjust, and it's almost been something that speaks volumes of like, oh my gosh, he's not 100%, and look how dominant he can be at times. If you watch him at Prolific Prep in high school, he's unbelievable, and it's one of those things where like coming into the year at Kansas, there was a big like kind of pause when you really looked at it, and like for evaluators or us at No Ceilings, we were kind of like, hey, this could be a little bit of a weird year for Darren, and what we were getting at is like Kansas has a history of like, they don't let these guys to just come in, be versatile, do everything. They want guys to score, and they don't have guys that have a lot of like, the best profiles coming in as a one and done. They just never have. And with Darren, you looked at that roster and you're like, hey, the context is going to be important with this evaluation because they need him to score. They didn't have a lot of scoring guys. Flory Badunga's a defensive lob threat. Melvin Council's been good for them, but they don't have a lot of shooters, guys that could space the floor. So then Darren gets kind of hurt and he's playing through this. So it's like, okay, well, now they need him to just put the ball in the basket. And when he's been close to 100, I mean, there's an argument he hasn't even been 100% this year. You see that he's taking serious strides in his game as a catch and shoot guy. And that was an area I had questions about him coming into this year. So the fact that he's taken that stride, I'm like, oh my gosh. So, and I think there's some defensive stuff from high school that we haven't even been able to see this year consistently. Like, that's how special he is. And, the whole year when you talk to scouts, you kind of are like, hey, is there anything with Darren, or is it just, no, it's injury. Okay. Like, and you feel dumb for even asking, but they are even like, it's unbelievable what he's doing. And he's probably really banged up and not even close to 100%. So the idea is, hey, if you could get him healthy and get to the combine and the medicals check out, you might get a really scary piece that's just ready to roll right out of the gate.
Here in Washington, Tyler, we are in desperate need of a blue chip star. How would you describe the fit of DP in DC?
I know at first glance, it kind of gets to a point where if you're a Wizards fan, you might be like, okay, is this going to get clunky? Because it's like, hey, I love Trey Johnson that they drafted. And then you get Darren and you're like, okay, is there too much overlap there? And Trae Young, obviously. Darren is one of those special players that you just get and he'll figure it out and you will figure it out. And he can play so many different roles. His playmaking, honestly, in high school, which has drawn a lot of controversy right now because people are like, he doesn't pass, he doesn't get assists. His playmaking actually got me to buy in on Darren as like a number one guy. It was that special in high school because it's the vision, it's how he sets people up. And, like you said, Ben, like, you don't see that clearly. It's clearly bothered with like his quickness and how he moves in and out of cuts right now. He's not even close to 100%. So I think with Washington, you would be getting like, hey, you get a guy who could just play a wide number of roles and give you success at all of that. You can play him heavy on the ball to run the offense. He can be a catch and shoot guy. He can move off the ball. It's one of those things where you'd be like, hey, just get him and you're going to be happy and you're going to figure out a way to really thrive with everyone. But like, a player like him, if you're putting him alongside Trey, absolutely it could be nightmares for defenses because they can play together. If you're putting him along, Trey Johnson, it could be even nightmares just because their shooting gravity and their ability to kind of work off the dribble. So I think it's one of those things like just get him, just draft him, and you'll figure it out in a hurry.
Yeah, this is how I've felt. I think a lot of people have been turned away by the stuff recently, but I haven't played a lot of mind of that. I think the guy is just too talented right now, and obviously a lot of the stuff that's going around is purely speculation. Like the only thing that we know or that is known about Darren Peterson is between him, likely his dad, his agent, maybe Bill Self at Kansas, but like we just don't really know everything that's happening, and the context is obviously super important with what we see player like this. So like he's still number one on my board to me. And the number one thing that has stuck out to me about him since high school and in his college game now is to me he seems like a big game riser. You saw the game against BYU where he scores 18 points in the first half of that game. He's dominating in every facet of the game, rebounding, defensively, playmaking, taking it to the hole, shooting from the outside. Even back in high school when he played against AJ Dybantsa, I think he dropped like 56 points or something like that. And even in the games where he hasn't had his best overall game, I think he's come up with some really big shots, including recently. He just seems like a player that gets it done when the lights are bright. How much value do you think that brings, or how much like value do executives see in something like that?
A ton. I think that's what makes them so comfortable about like all of this with the injury and everything this year. They've seen a lot of Darren over the years. And, his last game, he kind of made the comment in the post-game press conference where he just kind of was saying like, I'm more quiet to myself. That is Darren. Like his kind of, if you're comparing it, he's like a lot of Kawhi Leonard to his mentality where he's like, I don't need to be the most vocal. I just want to go out there and play. And that's also like matches what you're seeing this year where like a lot of people have been like, why doesn't he just shut it down? He'll still be a number one pick after some of these big performances. He wants to play basketball. He wants to get out there, but it's that injury is something where it's like your body could tell you you're healthy and you're pushing in the middle of the game and all of a sudden it's like, oh gosh, like it's back. And I think it's been frustrating for fans. It's been very frustrating for evaluators too, but it's also one of those things where it's like, if you push that too hard, he could be out for more than a year if it does real damage. So I think they're trying to be careful, and he's just trying to be like, hey, when it's getting there, I'm going to let you know. But Darren's mentality is that of like, I want to play. I'm going to figure out a way. And the tough part is I do buy like him being like, hey, if I'm not anywhere close, but someone at 100% on my team can help out more, I don't want to hurt us. So it's a tough dilemma in a really special class, but I think it's one of those things where if you do your check-ins, you talk to people, you get intel about Darren, he's checked in all boxes and no one's ever suggested anything about Darren Peterson like in a bad way. It's all been positive.
Yeah. Got to do your homework. You got to talk to people. That's the bottom line with this type of stuff. So this is some really great context that we're getting here from Tyler. All right, when we come back, God forbid if the Wizards fall to 5 or 6 or 7, whatever, in this draft, there's still some really good point guard options. We're going to weigh in and see who the best fit could be in DC and why. We'll do that next. Workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, the inbox overflowing, and the one position that you still have to fill is open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. Here's a stat that says it all. In the minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates. Your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Listeners of this show will get $75 sponsored job credit to help your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
So, Tyler, God forbid, like Ben mentioned, if the Wizards fall and they get 6, 7, or 8, I don't even want to imagine about that, but Darius Acuff, this kid out of Arkansas, I just saw he recently dropped 45 points. I know Kendrick Perkins dropped a tweet saying that he's really high on him. What are your thoughts on him?
He's been tremendous this year. Acuff was one of those players that I think when you looked at him from the beginning of the year, like 5-star prospect coming out of high school, you kind of wanted to just see it. A lot of evaluators were like, okay, I know he's talented, but like, how is it going to translate? Because he is a little undersized, which sounds silly to say these days, but like 6'2", 6'3" range is considered undersized now in the modern NBA. But you watch this year, and Darius just kept bringing it to the table every single time. He's tough. He's 200 plus pounds. He's physically strong, and he knows how to play the game with pace and poise. So as the year has gone on, he just continues to get better and know how to get to his spot. So I think he's been one of these names where early on in the year, I think scouts were kind of like, he might not be as high in our circles. And then when you kept talking to him, they're like, hey, at some point, the production's too impressive to ignore. So I definitely think he's one of the hotter names, and he's earned it this year. He's been fantastic.
What do you think about a guard prospect in terms of like having them play behind a guy like Trae Young? Would the situation make sense, or do you feel like a lot of these guards that we see are just so NBA ready that they should be starting in their respective spot that they're drafted to? But obviously, I think Washington's in a situation where if you fall in this draft, I think you got to go with one of these point guard options because, like, realistically, we don't know what the long-term future looks like for Trae Young in DC. Do you feel like a player like this would really benefit from playing behind Young, or would they benefit more from playing in a situation where they play right away?
You know, I'm kind of on the point of like, I would want them to be not having to, play full time. And the only reason I think that is because it's one of the hardest positions in all of sports to adjust to, because it's not just, you're adjusting to now way faster game and things are going supersonic speeds. You're also adjusting to running a team, a franchise, and its personalities and everything. And like the playbook's expanded. So I think it would be a really nice luxury. Obviously, I don't want the Wizards to drop that low because I root for you guys. But if you had to take a guard, this is the year to get one. The point guard class is fantastic. It'd be a great place to be like, hey, you don't have to get rushed into action right away. You can learn from Trae Young for a little bit and learn the ropes and be a immediate depth piece with this. And maybe that's where you're like, okay, now we get him and Trey Johnson off the bench or in the rotation. So I would love it. And I think with this class, the point guard class is so deep. It's like in that range where the Wizards could be picking. I don't know if you want to just be like, well, because we have a good roster right now, we want to go draft something else. I don't think you want to draft for need ever. And especially with this draft, I would just trust your board. And if it's a point guard, it's a point guard. You take the best talent and you figure it out.
Yeah, I think, Tyler, today's day and age, it's always BPA. You just can't go off need. Wanted to ask you about Kingston Fleming. What do you make of him?
I love Kingston. It's been one of my favorite guys this year. I got to see him in person in the beginning of the year because I was just kind of curious of like, okay, is this a legit name, or is it just kind of like he was starting out the year hot? And seeing him in person was way more impressive than I was expecting. He's a lot bigger than he looks on tape, is what I would say to folks. Like, he's probably going to be a legit 6'4", and I've heard some execs kind of confirm that. And he just really carries himself in a mature way. I feel like the game I saw him have a great, box score game. I saw him have an ugly one. And both games, I thought he was one of the more impressive players on the court, because it's just, you could tell the upperclassmen on his team, the whole roster kind of looks to him to kind of run the show and set people up. He's really smart at getting to his spots. He's not someone that he doesn't want to shoot a ton of threes, but it's mainly because he just knows, like, I can get where I want to create for myself or to create for my teammates. So really good driving kick guy, a guy that's also, I think, one of the better defensive point guards in this class. Like, he's feisty on the ball. So I love Kingston. I know there's some more offensive flashy guys in this class at the point guard position, but I think on both sides of the ball, he brings it every single night.
Is he your number one of the guards outside of Peterson, obviously?
Yeah, he's my number one. And I know he's a little cold right now, but it's one of those things where I've kind of watched a lot of his games where he doesn't have the best box scores. I kind of jokingly call those the off nights, because it's like, well, how are you impacting the game when your shot's not falling? And he's had a lot of those games where I'm like, man, he was great in that game too. So it's the vision, the playmaking. His speed is fantastic, but he knows how to use that speed. I think a lot of guys that are really fast with the ball always want to be in sixth gear. He knows how to set you up and stop on a dime and manipulate defenses really, really well. So I like a lot of the intangibles with Kingston. I also think he's just at a great place that, is going to have him ready to be a pro when it comes to that Houston coaching staff.
He isn't a guard, Tyler, but I wanted to ask about Nate Ahmed because he is from my hometown. What do you make of his season so far? I know he started off slow, but then he had a really good performance, I think 20-plus points. Do you think he's a factor in March Madness?
Nate's been probably one of my trickiest evaluations this year, and it's more because watching his high school tape, there was a lot of people that were in the preseason hyping him like, hey, he belongs in the top 5 conversation. And I was like, okay, well, that's some pretty lofty hope there. And I thought it was like, hey, it's a 6'10" floor spacing. Like, I understand the sell. And I thought he was just early in the year really struggling with like the physicality of the SEC and stuff, which I understood because of, his profile. And I thought, he put on a bunch of weight coming to Tennessee. I thought it was going to take some time for him to adjust. Like, hey, I can throw my weight around a little bit more. But I was much colder on him early on. And then it got to conference play and it was like, who's this guy? Nate looks like a completely different player. So he's been tremendous lately. And it's been one of those things where it's like completely surged back up stock, draft boards, with his draft stock. And I think it's one of those like, okay, now teams are starting to warm up again to like him being in the top 10 conversation. So Nate's just one of these really young, long-term, you got to be patient with because, early on it might be, oh, this is really raw. And then all of a sudden things have started to come together. And if you look into his background, that's kind of been Nate's thing his whole career or his whole playing journey. He takes a little bit of time just to figure it out. And once he does, he's a fun talent.
All right, we'll let you go on this one, Tyler. 2025 draft class was great. Obviously, like you look at the top 3 that we saw, Edgecombe, Flag, and Harper, of course, like 3, I think, really good players. We look at the top 3 of this class, but then the guys that follow. Just, do you feel this class upcoming is like marginally better than the 2025 class? Is there a big gap? Is it a small gap? Is there no gap? Where are you at in terms of just how good you think this class is?
I think this is a special class. And it's always tough to kind of be like, hey, this previous class was unbelievable. This one's going to be better because you're like, okay, well, everything has to fall the right way. But the talent is that special at the top. And then you get beyond that. And I love a lot of the upperclassmen that might be going, late lottery. I like a lot of these depth pieces. The big class doesn't have like the franchise building block, but there's some really good bigs that could be like really nice rotation pieces. So I think the star power in this class could be that special where it kind of edges out the 25 one, but also like looking at, what the 25 class is doing right now. I'm like, wow, that's a big thing to say. So yeah, it's worth the hype. It's been everything we've wanted and more. And I just keep being like, man, this class could be special. I was giddy the other night watching film, like, gosh, this is going to be insane to watch moving forward of where these guys all end up.
The better question is it better than the 2024 draft class, Tyler?
Yeah, probably. I like that one too. But I like where the Wizards ended up from 24 because they got the right guy. So yeah, this one's gonna be special. I always try to pump the brakes a little bit with fans when they're like, is it gonna be this one's special? This one's different, and it feels that way right now. It's just a lot of the storylines that are developing are going to be really interesting to kind of monitor moving forward.
Yeah. And I everybody listening, I would trust this guy. He watches a lot of film. Can I just ask, like, how do you even manage watching all of this tape?
Not a lot of sleep, especially this time of the year. A lot of coffee and not a lot of sleep, but it's always fun. It's a grind, and it's tough because there's so many games. So these are the months that are really valuable for scouts and evaluators because it's like, okay, I could finally catch up. When March Madness stops, I'm like, yes, I can watch film now. This is great. So. But it's fun. You just try to play catch up as much as you can, and eventually it kind of all waters down.
I love it. Why don't you go ahead and let everybody know where they can check out all of your work, get your updated big boards, whatever you may be putting out here in the near future.
Yeah, so we're at NoCeilingsNBA.com. We've got big boards and mock drafts coming up soon. We usually do like a consensus of all of our top 60s. So we'll have that soon. And we've got, articles coming every day that are breaking down these prospects in depth. So it's at NoCeilingsNBA.com, and I'm at Tyler_Rucker on social medias.
You heard the man, Tyler Rucker, everybody, founder of No Ceilings NBA. This was incredible. Thank you so much for the time, man.
Thank you for having me, guys.
really appreciate. All right, everybody, that'll do it for today's episode of Locked On Wizards. A lot of great draft intel. We got a lot more coming for you in the rest of the week. We got the Wizards and Hawks once again tomorrow with a post-game coverage for you, of course, on the Locked On Wizards post-game show. But for now, that'll do it for our guest, Tyler Rucker, my co-host, Abdullah Ayubi. I'm Ben Strober. Talk to you later, DC family.